Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to get together to give you some great information about the COVID-19 vaccine and answer some questions that you might have. I'm Dr. Katie Borders. I'm a board certified obstetrician gynecologist at Shelby Women's Care in Shelby, North Carolina. And I have with me Dr. Lorraine Timming, who is a board certified maternal fetal medicine specialist, as well as a board certified obstetrician gynecologist. Dr. Timming works with our high-risk obstetric patients. So, as all of you know, the COVID vaccine has been out since December. There have been a lot of questions that have come up about it. And we really wanted to have a chance to talk to you today because of the current state of the coronavirus. You know, across the Southeast, we are seeing many people, including pregnant women, hospitalized. We are seeing them unfortunately lose their babies and sometimes lose their own lives due to this virus. And, you know, that is very distressing for us as care providers of pregnant patients. We don't want that to happen to any of our patients. And if we can do something to prevent it, we really want to be able to do that. And that's one of the main reasons that we're talking to you today. In North Carolina, there are over 3,800 patients currently hospitalized with COVID, and we've had more than 1.2 million people test positive for it. Locally, within our Atrium Health system, we have seen a 61% increase in the number of patients on life support in just the past 2 weeks. We have over 240 patients on ventilators, and 96% of those patients are unvaccinated. We're continuing to see younger, healthier people who may have never set foot in a hospital, and even children hospitalized with coronavirus. So Dr. Timming, can you tell us what the current recommendations are regarding vaccination?
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Borders, thank you for having me here today for the chance to talk about this. So at this time, all of the major organizations have come out to say that pregnant women should strongly be encouraged to get vaccinated against COVID-19. And that applies to pregnant women, people who are trying to get pregnant, people who have small babies and are breastfeeding, basically all of the women that we take care of in our population. And that recommendation is supported now by the CDC, by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and by the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. So it's a pretty universal and universally strong recommendation from all of those organizations.
And can you tell us about the vaccines that we have available at this time?
Yeah, so there are 3 vaccines that we have available. So there are 2 mRNA vaccines. So mRNA is this vaccine technology that's used to teach your body how to respond to the spike protein of COVID. And it works by just an injection into your muscle and teaches your muscle cell to make just the spike protein, not the whole virus, but teaches your body to fight COVID. And those 2 vaccines people know as Pfizer and Moderna, which are the companies that make those vaccines. That vaccine technology has actually been around a long time. And while it had not been used in pregnant women before this time, it had been studied for preparation to be used for pregnant women. And the third type of vaccine, or the vaccine that's readily available, is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And that vaccine uses a deactivated virus to deliver the same spike protein to your body and teach you how to fight against that spike protein. And that type of vaccine has been studied and has been used in pregnant women before.
Thank you so much. So what I think I hear you saying is that you cannot get coronavirus from any of these vaccines. Is that correct?
No, absolutely not. So what the vaccines do is teach your body how to make these special proteins called antibodies that fight against the coronavirus. So there's no chance of getting infected with COVID from getting the vaccine, but the vaccines, all 3 of them, have been shown to be highly effective at teaching your body to fight the virus.
And all of these vaccines have some type of approval from the FDA. Can you explain the difference in the approval?
Yeah, so So when the vaccines first came out in December, they were granted what's called emergency use authorization. This is a common process with the FDA, and we have used many drugs and vaccinations and things such as that under emergency use authorization in the past. What the FDA basically does is take initial studies and if a large group of scientists, physicians agree that it's safe, then this emergency use authorization is granted, usually with the requirement that more studies be performed before complete approval is obtained. So Pfizer is the only company that has gotten to the point of complete approval. That vaccine is no longer under emergency use authorization, but it's FDA approved, and it's going by the brand name of Comirnaty. So all of them are available in our area, and all of them have approval in some form from the FDA.
Awesome. And when do you recommend getting a COVID-19 vaccination?
Well, I think the bottom line is as soon as possible if you haven't already gotten it yet. So certainly if you're contemplating pregnancy in the future, I think it's important to get the vaccine. If you're around pregnant women, so if you have a partner or friend or family member who's pregnant, or if you're around small children, then it's important to get the vaccine.
Now, what if I was thinking about trying to get pregnant or currently undergoing infertility treatment? Should I get the COVID-19 vaccine?
Yeah, it's very recommended in that case, because then you would go into pregnancy, a high-risk time, already protected. So we're really encouraging anyone who's thinking about getting pregnant, you got to be taking your prenatal vitamins. This is another step in preparation for getting pregnant, is having the COVID-19 vaccine so you don't have to worry about getting sick while you're pregnant.
And I believe that is supported by ASRM, the Society of Our Infertility Doctors.
Yeah, it sure is. So that recommendation to get vaccinated if you're thinking about getting pregnant is supported by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, as well as the American Society of Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility Doctors. Those are the doctors that help out with infertility and help with getting people pregnant. So that recommendation is very strong from everyone.
That's great. And, in my field, I look after women who aren't pregnant also, and I've been encouraging them to get vaccinated. Did any parts of the COVID-19 vaccine build up in the ovary?
No, I think this is really important. So it's probably one of the biggest areas of misinformation out there on the COVID vaccine. I've seen all of that on social media, just like all of my patients have, but it's just categorically not true. So there's been some good pharmacokinetic studies where scientists look at all the parts of the vaccine, the vaccine product that carries the spike protein and the spike protein, and less than 1% of any of that product is anywhere near the ovaries after you get the shot. And it certainly does not build up in the ovaries.
That is super helpful. And so that means that there is no chance that 5-10 years down the road, this vaccine is going to prevent someone from becoming pregnant.
No, definitely not. So that's another, I think, really dangerous myth. One of the first kind of myths that went around is that there is some similarity between the spike protein that your body learns to fight against and a protein in the placenta called syncytin-1. So early on, there was this myth going around that because those two proteins were alike, when your body learned to fight COVID-19, it would also learn to fight placenta proteins and prevent you from getting pregnant in the future. And this is just categorically not true. For one thing, the two proteins, syncytin-1 in the placenta and the spike protein, are not very similar. They don't have any reactivity when you put them together in a lab. For another thing, there have been some really great studies now that have looked at 3 groups of women. One group, which is women who've never had COVID and never gotten the vaccine, so they don't have any antibodies. The second group is women who have gotten COVID and who have some natural antibodies against that spike protein and against COVID-19. And then the third group is women who've been vaccinated. And they looked at those 3 types of women, so women without immunity and women with either immunity from being sick or immunity from the vaccine. And they watched what happened to those women when they went under infertility treatments. And the rate of clinical pregnancy, the chance of success of getting pregnant, was similar between all of those groups. And it was similar to the rate of success with those sort of treatments before COVID was even around. So I think that's really compelling evidence that the COVID vaccine does not have any impact on fertility. And so I know that that's a huge thing that weighs on young people's minds thinking about their future, but I think it's very not true. I think that it should not have any impact on fertility.
Well, and I think it's really great for us to have actual data rather than just myths or memes, about concerns, but we have actual data that shows it is not true.
Yeah. And it can be very hard to sort out, what data to trust and what sources to trust. I always tell my patients to trust, peer-reviewed articles, things that are like in the New England Journal of Medicine, to trust things that come from recommendations from societies like the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine or ACOG, because we're here to take care of women, and we have huge panels of people who are looking at all of the data that there is and making these assessments. So I think it's really important when you hear something, from a friend or online, to find out more about where that information is coming from.
And I think, being okay, asking us, because we are happy, as your healthcare provider, to answer questions you might have and dispel any myths, help you understand what's true and what's not.
Yeah, I think, all of us nowadays are really talking to all of our patients about it. I talk to all of my patients about it, and I tell them, listen, there's two reasons I'm having this conversation with you. One is that the data is really great, that it does not cause harm and that it's helpful. And then the second is that this Delta variant is making our pregnant patients very sick, and we're seeing, unfortunately, horrible things happen to them. And so I want to say to every patient that I can that they need to get vaccinated, and they need their family around them to be vaccinated as well.
Yeah. We want our patients to be happy and healthy and have good pregnancies. That's our end goal in all of this.
Absolutely.
Now, another question my gynecologic patients have asked me is, will the COVID-19 vaccine change my period?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. There have been some reports online also of that, of the vaccine changing your period. And what I tell women about that is it's unlikely. So in the best data that we have, that doesn't seem to be a common side effect. That being said, it wouldn't be surprising if it did. So we see that with other vaccines as well, that either getting vaccinated or having an illness, anything like that that activates your immune system can alter your period a little bit. So even if that happens with one cycle or two cycles, it still does not impact your permanent fertility, and it still should not be a long-term impact. So I really tell people I don't think that's anything to be worried about.
That's fantastic. And so finally, I think we've talked a lot about vaccination, and we know that is a great tool that we have to help keep our patients healthy. What are some other things our patients can do to prevent the spread of coronavirus?
Yeah, absolutely. Practicing social distancing, that magic 6 feet number away from others, wearing masks and washing hands. And then I think also ensuring that people around the pregnant woman are vaccinated. And I think that's really important, not just for the pregnant woman, but also for her baby. When the baby's on the outside, that the people who are going to be helping take care of the baby are vaccinated, because that has been shown so well to decrease the likelihood that you do get sick, or mean that even if you do unfortunately get COVID, you're much less likely to be severely ill.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really good point. We want to say the vaccine prevents COVID. And while it does in many cases, it is not guaranteed that it will keep you from getting the virus. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So just because a vaccinated person gets COVID, that doesn't mean that the vaccine has failed. In fact, the endpoint that the vaccines were studied for was keeping people out of the hospital and keeping them from dying. And the vaccine is really excellent at doing that. We're seeing that, you mentioned the 60-some% increase in people who were hospitalized and severely ill. Across the country, you can look at those numbers and see that 92 to 95% of those people are unvaccinated. So vaccination really helps prevent severe disease.
That's great. And then you mentioned mask wearing as a way to curb the spread of the virus. Should patients just wear masks when they come to our offices?
I think that they definitely should. So any place that you're going to be around people who are outside of your immediate household, right now, you really should be wearing a mask, especially if you're indoors. So masks protect you from other people and other people from any germs that you might have. So we actually, require that anyone who comes into our office wear a mask. And that's really to protect the patient as much as it is to protect healthcare workers.
And I've also been encouraging them to wear them at places like the grocery store, if they have to go to a school for some reason, any type of indoor place, like you said, outside your home where other people may be, you should have a mask on.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important interventions. And, I think right now with the Delta variant, it's important to wear the mask even if you have gotten vaccinated to help protect yourself.
That's super helpful. So thank you so much for joining me today. I love getting to see you as always, and I really appreciate the helpful information.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Always happy to talk about this subject matter. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we appreciate all of you listening today. I think in closing, we have a couple of key points. Number 1 is get vaccinated. Number 2 is wear your mask. And number 3, please email any questions you have to COVID-19 pregnancy@atriumhealth.org. Thank you.